Hello and welcome to my kitchen today. We are going to do something inside today. Obviously we're gonna be in the kitchen and I'm gonna be baking some caramel rolls. So this is something that I always had as a kid. My mom made them. My mom's whole family makes them for the most part, and I've changed the dough recipe because of course I have, because that's what I like to do. But this is something I remember from my childhood, and it's something that I have made for years to sell. So I've done it for years for farmers market. I made them for the farm store. It's been forever because I had a broken oven for a long time, and then it was summertime and I just haven't had time to do it. But I've made thousands probably of caramel rolls, and we're gonna make them together today. My mom also used to make them for when I was in softball. When I was a child, we would do like bake sale fundraisers, and my mom would make caramel rolls, and she'd get up like super early in the morning and do it. And I always remember like waking up and having the house smell like caramel rolls, and it was amazing and delicious. So this is something that's really good for the holiday season, and they do freeze really well, so you can bake them ahead of time and then freeze them, and I do that all the time, and they taste just as good frozen. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make the dough because it needs to rise. And so this whole process takes a couple of hours, but there's not like, you get kind of breaks in between because, you know, you have to let the dough rise, and then you roll out the rolls, and then you let them rise and stuff. So yeah, let's get step one done, and then, you know, we'll be back and forth. So it's a pretty simple recipe. It's not horribly overcomplicated. It's a pretty easy dough to work with. It is like a sweet dough, and it's on the stickier side, but it's not like horribly hard to work with. My mom always used the Rhodes frozen white bread dough, so you can totally do that as an easy way to like not have to make dough from scratch. So you just get the loaves like frozen, and I think she always would use 3 of them, let them defrost, roll them out. So that's a easy workaround if you don't want to make dough. But we're going to make our dough from scratch today. And so first thing we're going to do is put our yeast in some warm water and let it do its thing. Make sure that it's alive, and then get all the other ingredients like mixed up. I will have the recipe in the description for you guys so you can make this on your own. So I've got 1 cup of warm water, and then my recipe's over here. So I used to know this by heart when I was making them like every week for farmers market or for farm store. It wasn't every week for farm store, but quite often. But it's been a very long time, so I hope I remember how to do this. 2 packets of yeast, or 4.5 teaspoons if you're using like a jar. And then go ahead and mix it. Just warm water, just from the tap. I don't use, like, it can't be super hot or you'll kill your yeast, and then if it's cold water, it's not going to activate the yeast. It's not going to do anything. And this is regular active dry yeast, not quick rise. I do usually put a little sprinkle of sugar in it to feed it. I don't know if that's like really necessary, but that's what I do. So we'll grab a pinch of sugar. I have probably half a teaspoon of sugar that we'll mix in there. This is what it looks like. It smells like yeast. We'll let this set aside for about like 5 to 10 minutes. I just rinsed out the bowl of my stand mixer and just splashed water all over myself, so that's cool. In the bowl of the stand mixer, we're gonna do 6 tablespoons of room temperature butter. This recipe actually, that I like kind of adapted this from years ago, calls for Crisco, and I don't have any Crisco, so we're gonna use butter. And you can do that. Butter and Crisco you can exchange on a 1-to-1 ratio. I was reading that Crisco kind of makes things like lighter and fluffier, whereas butter like has more flavor. So I'm sure it'll be fine. I have never done this with butter, but like, it's butter. It can't really be bad, right? So we do 6 tablespoons of butter. We do a heaping tablespoon of salt. This is kosher salt. You can use like a regular salt. It's very coarse. Like, I bought a different brand than I normally do. It's very coarse. It's fine. It'll dissolve in because we're gonna put hot water in here as well. And then I need a cup of sugar. And I actually do a little bit less than a cup of sugar. So this is a sweet dough, but there's going to be so much sugar later. There's brown sugar and cinnamon and, you know, cream to make caramel and stuff. And so like, they're sweet, and I just don't want the dough, like, I want it sweet, but I don't want it like super sweet. So I'm just slightly under a cup of sugar. And we're going to raise up our stand mixer and turn it on and just beat this for about, let me talk before I turn it on. Let's just beat this for about like 30 seconds to combine it. about 30 seconds, it's just combined. Now we're gonna drizzle in, or like slowly add in 2 cups of hot water. Just gonna kind of let this mix in and kind of get combined. Everything is like melted, the butter has combined, and the sugar, like, I'm sure it's gritty, but this is good. If you use really like super hot water, you kind of want it to cool because you don't want to kill your yeast, because we're going to put that in here shortly. And so the next step is, so we're going to add in 2 cups of flour right now. This, I didn't use like the hottest water that comes out of my tap, so this is fine. I would say it's like lukewarm. I have my 2 cups of flour. I'm just going to slowly add this in. I can see like there's still a little bit of flour on the paddle, but that's okay. It's going to get all incorporated in later. So our yeast is ready to add in, our yeast and water mixture. You can see, like, look at all those bubbles. Like, this yeast is nice and alive and nice and active, and so we're going to add this in. Next step is we add in 2 eggs that I have beaten. I'm going to switch over to the dough hook now, and we're going to add in 7 more cups of flour. I'm going to turn this on low speed, slowly add in the flour, and then once everything's kind of incorporated, then we can turn up the speed and get it to kind of form a ball. So I'll show you as I add the flour and stuff, like what it looks like. But yeah, we're going to start on low speed, get everything wet. Try not to make a mess. You'll make a mess. All the flour is in. It has been mixing for about like 30 seconds or so, maybe a minute. I am gonna I'm gonna drop my bowl down. Gonna just kind of make sure that we get the bottom and the sides kind of moved around so that everything can get incorporated. And then I always end up with a ton of flour on the top of the dough hook. Get that all mixed in. We're gonna turn it up 1 speed, and so it's not like on low anymore. I'm gonna go 1 higher. And just let this go for a couple of minutes. Okay, this is done mixing. We're gonna turn our dough out onto the counter, onto a floured surface. I'm gonna clean up my mess real quick. And then we're gonna knead it just a little tiny bit by hand, just so we can kind of like feel the texture and make sure it's nice and smooth. I'm gonna make sure we get it all scraped out of the bowl. Put a little bit of flour down at the bottom that didn't get incorporated in. These glass bowls are nice, but they sure are heavy. All right, with just a little bit of more flour added in, then it's not sticking just a tiny bit to my hands, but I'm not like covered in dough. Just a little bit more. It's nice and smooth. It's warm. Okay, our dough is done. I've got just a glass bowl. I'm gonna put a little bit of olive oil spray in the bowl. Put that in there. I do usually like to spray the top too, so it doesn't dry out. And then we're gonna put a tea towel on it. And then I'm actually gonna go turn my oven on to like low, like whatever the lowest setting is. And I'm gonna put it, I'm not putting it in the oven. Some people have a proof setting like on their ovens. I don't, but I'm gonna just put it on top on the stovetop, and it'll get the heat. That's a warm spot in my kitchen because it's kind of cool in here today. And so one, I put this in a warm spot. It's gonna take 45 minutes to an hour. We want it to double in size. So we'll check back, and then we'll be able to move on to the next step and roll out the rolls. So yeah, 45 minutes, an hour-ish, I'll be back. It's gonna take like 1 second for you guys. I'm gonna go do something else. We're back. It's actually been like an hour and a half. It's taking forever for the dough to rise, but it's almost done. It is cool in my house. I turned up my heat. I did actually turn up the oven just slightly. It's at 190 degrees. And I've been just like rotating the bowl because the heat comes from like the back of the oven. And so just took longer than normal. Usually when I am like baking for farm store, when I would bake for farmer's market, I would be doing like other stuff. And so the oven would be at 350. And so it'd be really warm. So it would rise pretty quickly. Today is just slow, and that's fine. Sometimes that just happens. That's why you just keep an eye on it. So we're gonna prep our pans for our caramel rolls while that finishes. This does make a pretty large amount, and that's why I talked about you can freeze these, because this is a pretty substantial amount of rolls. We're gonna do some butter and brown sugar in the bottom of our pans, and then after the rolls rise again, which we'll get to, then we pour a little bit of cream on, and that's how you make the caramel. Like it just makes itself in the pan, which is nice. Half a stick of butter is what I'm gonna do. We're gonna start with that. This is the part where like I don't measure. And so this is kind of just done by feel, but I'm gonna try and give measurements and stuff. This is why I'm bad at recipes. It's because I don't measure stuff. So we're gonna start with half a stick. This is kind of something that I just do by feel. So we're gonna measure and see if it feels right. So I'm just spreading this out. My hands are clean, of course. Room temperature butter. This has been sitting out overnight. And we're just gonna kind of evenly spread this throughout the bottom of the pan. So you do kind of have to get the ratios right because, like I said, the caramel is just kind of cooking itself in the pan. I've done this enough that like I kind of know exactly what I'm wanting. Oh yeah, half a stick of butter and a 9x13 is gonna be just about perfect. And it's not like super critical because you can kind of fix it if it is messed up, but you don't want it to be too dry. And then when we put the cream on later, I'll show you how much to do, of course. And then if you do put too much, you can get kind of like it just doesn't like combine well enough like while it's baking. But if you just take a spatula at the end and like smooth it out, it'll be fine. So nice even layer. It's not like super thick, but it is like there is a bit on the bottom. It's not just like when you grease a pan to do like a cake or something, where you want just a very thin layer, you don't want it thin. You want there to be some butter there. I do these two different ways in the farm store as far as packaging goes. So I will bake them in like 9x13s just like this, and then package them like 2 rolls in like a clamshell, or I do them in like 9-inch rounds aluminums pans that have lids, so that you get, I think I get 5 rolls in each. But we're just gonna do 9x13s today. I was telling Grace what I was doing today, and she was excited to have a caramel roll when she comes home from school. This is what this pan looks like. There's of course a little bit of butter still on my fingers. I'm gonna try and get all that off, or like most of it. Okay. Don't want to waste it. Okay, I'm gonna wash my hands. We're gonna put some brown sugar on the bottom of the pan. I think also half a cup. Again, this is the part that I don't usually measure, and I just usually do by feel, but yeah, half a cup will work. And then just spread it out. That's what the pan looks like when it's done. Lightly packed. Two 9x13s. Hopefully that holds all of them. We're gonna set this aside, and then I'll get our dough, and we're gonna roll out the dough. Here's our dough. It's doubled in size. It's kind of peeking out over the top of the bowl. We're gonna now divide this in 2. And I'm just gonna turn it out onto my clean counter. We're gonna flour it, of course, otherwise it's gonna stick. All right, and then I usually just divide it in the bowl. Can punch it. Get a little bit of flour on my hands. And then I'm just gonna try and divide this evenly. If it's not even, it's okay. It doesn't really want to like come out, but that's all right. I mean, it does come out. It's not stuck to the bowl or anything, but it's just a little floppy. Set the other half aside. And then we're gonna sprinkle with just a little bit more flour. Oh, it's so smooth. It's such nice dough. You guys can't even see. Let me try and move. I love my kitchen, and I love like my island, but like back behind where you guys are sitting is like, it's bar height. And so I don't have, it's like just a little tricky, because ideally if it was like flat, then I could like push you back. We're working with what we got. Obviously I'm not gonna like redesign the kitchen. Okay. So we're gonna roll this out into as close to a rectangle as we can. It's dough, it doesn't always work. I have to find my rolling pin. It's been 100 years since I've used it. I can't find the one I usually use because it's been forever, but this will work. This is just a wooden solid rolling pin. Okay, rectangle. So that means we work it one direction and then the other. And at first it's not really gonna wanna roll, but you just give it some time. You gotta get the gluten and stuff to kind of loosen. Get some of the air out. You're gonna probably make a mess. Try not to push all that flour onto the floor. And then this is kind of where you can customize and make it like however thick you want your layers to be. And And you want to keep rolling until like it's retracting back at this point still. You want to get it where it's not going to keep doing that. So I'm going to move you down so you can see. And you're going to push out the air bubbles. You'll hear them pop. Little sticky spot there. See, it's still retracting back pretty substantially. Rectangle-esque is what we're going for. Make sure you roll off the edge, otherwise your edges can end up being like a little bit thicker than the center. And just add more flour if you need it, if it's sticking to your counter. My sink's in the way. Okay, I think we're good. It's pretty much holding its shape. Rectangle-esque. Really not an exact science. Okay, we're going to take 1 stick of butter now. And spread that. And this has got to be room temperature or you're going to not have a good time. And we're just going to spread that over the dough. As evenly as possible. Make sure you clean your counter before you do this. I don't use melted butter. We've always used room temperature butter. I see when some people make cinnamon rolls and stuff like online, social media, I see people use melted butter. I don't know that you couldn't use melted butter. I would just always use room temperature butter and spread it this way. You can also, instead of doing caramel rolls, you can just you can just put butter in your pan and not do the brown sugar and the cream that we'll do later, and do cinnamon rolls and make like a cream cheese frosting. I also have done orange rolls where I will just roll sugar into the next step and some orange zest, and then I make like an orange cream cheese frosting. So this dough can be used for multiple different like flavors. All right, again, we wash our hands. Now we're going to put brown sugar over, again, I think half a cup, lightly packed. It's a little bit more than half a cup. We're gonna start with this. Oh yeah, we're gonna need more, I think. Okay, 1 cup of brown sugar. Might even need a little more. Maybe not. Make sure you get it all the way to the edges. Yeah, I think we're gonna need just a little bit more. 1.25 cups. That was like loose brown sugar too, not packed. And then we sprinkle with just ground cinnamon. If you can get it to come out in an even layer, that's awesome. You want a nice, amount of cinnamon, but too much cinnamon doesn't taste super great. Okay, now we're gonna roll them. So we're just gonna start down here at this bottom corner, and I kind of grab, I don't know if you can see, grab and like pull and kind of make that first one kind of tight. So I always kind of am grabbing it, pulling back, and then rolling it. I try and like stretch out my edges to make it as even as possible, but it's okay if it's not. Usually the end ones that kind of end up being a little funky is what I would keep for us, for like if I was baking for farm store, because they just kind of end up being a little weird. Okay. I usually grab a little bit of flour. I always grab it in the middle and then like pull it towards me. Caramel roll snake. But not a gross snake. Pan, and then I'm just gonna take a serrated, it's a steak knife, and we're gonna cut them. Ooh, that's an awful sound. So yeah, end one funky. I put it the cut side up in the pan, and then we're gonna do, I don't know. You can do these however thick you want them to be. I'm doing this thick. Maybe 2 inches, 1.5 inches. Get them as close to even as possible. That noise on the counter is not great, I'm sorry. If you want your rolls to be a little bit smaller, don't cut them quite as thick. Two pans might not be enough. Yeah, these are hefty. You want space for them to grow, but you kind of also want them to touch. I'm gonna put the little ones kind of by each other. And the other, I roughly divided this in half, so the other section might not be quite. So, that's what it looks like when we're done. I'm gonna go ahead and roll out my other one just exactly the same way, and I will be back when we're done. When I'm done. I'm here by myself, just me. I'm just ready to roll the second batch. This one was definitely a little bit smaller, so I used just a little bit under a stick of butter for this one. So a little bit less brown sugar. And if like you do this often, you kind of just get a feel for it of how much you need. This one's not as pretty. It was a little bit more difficult to roll out. While I was rolling this, the house is real quiet. And Cocoa Bean is laying in the recliner over here and she's snoring. I can hear her. I'm sure you guys can't, but I can. And some sad Cocoa Bean news. She's been limping for a while and she'd kind of get better and then it would get worse. And it finally got where she was like not putting any weight on her back right leg. So I took her to the vet a while ago and they x-rayed her and everything and like felt her knee joint and her hips and stuff and suspected torn ACL. I took her to a vet that can do the surgery yesterday and they confirmed it. So Bean has to have knee surgery. So that's happening in December. So she's got like 12 weeks of recovery. The first couple weeks, like she has to just go out, you know, I have to keep her on a leash. She can't like jump, she can't run. I'm glad it's winter time, although I'm not gonna like enjoy standing outside with her, but it is what it is. It has to be done. She can't like jump up on the bed with the kids or on, like she's sleeping in a recliner right now. So that's gonna be kind of a full-time job for me for a couple of weeks, right before Christmas time, keeping Bean calm and not chasing cats in my house and not playing with the kids. And obviously we're gonna make sure she has pain meds and she will have to go in a crate like when I'm not in the house, which she doesn't love. She was crate trained as a puppy. She does like really have some separation anxiety. So that'll be fun. I feel really bad for her that she has to go through this, but she's only 4 and gotta get her fixed and get her knee feeling better so that next summer she can run and play and do chores and go for gator rides. And not that she's like a cow dog, but she likes to be a ranch dog. So that was real unfortunate, and I'm glad we know what's wrong. I'm glad it's fixable. In the long run, it'll be okay. Not ideal, but yeah. So we got that coming up. Lexi, the yellow lab that we had before Bean, she had a similar surgery. It was called TPLO. I don't know if Lexi tore her ACL. I don't know. It was a long time ago. But I've been through this before. My mom has also had a Chesapeake Bay Retriever that had a TPLO surgery. So, yeah, not great, but fixable, and we'll have a little bit of recovery time for Bean, but she'll be okay. All right, we've got kind of some odds and ends. Oh, see, tips over. That's okay, because those are smaller, and like they'll be okay in the long run. When I do this for farm store, I usually put like the nice big round ones in my 9-inch rounds, and then like the goofier ones, like I said, get saved for us, and then packaged like individually. So you want room for them to grow, so they don't need to be touching like right now, but we do eventually want them to be touching like after they rise again. So I'm going to put these back over on the stovetop where it's warm. This second rise should probably only take about like 30 minutes. It should be quicker, and I will come back and show you guys when they're done and ready to go. And I'll just like rotate them every once in a while so that they rise evenly. After about 20 minutes or so, I will turn the oven on to 350 and get it preheated so that once they're completely risen, then they can go in the oven. Our rolls are ready to go in the oven. They're kind of, the sugar's starting to be like a little tiny bit melty and the butter's like nice and warm, and there's a little bit, I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit of like moisture on the bottom, and that's just kind of from that brown sugar and butter warming up as the dough warms. They've risen. Some of them are now touching. So it was about like 30 minutes. Again, it's going to depend very much on the temperature of your kitchen. So now to make them caramel rolls, we are going to put heavy whipping cream around them, not on top, around them. My mom always said, don't put it on top of them, just put it around it. So that's what we do. We listen to her in this instance. I'm gonna start with a cup. Again, I don't usually measure, but we're trying to figure out the recipe for you guys. So I just drizzle it around. You don't want too much. Don't like drown them in cream. And like I do get a little bit on top. It's kind of inevitable as you're moving it around. Yeah, a cup's gonna be, I think just, maybe we could do even just a little bit less than a cup, but I think a cup will be good. So I'm gonna do this for both trays and go ahead and put them in the oven. I think they're gonna bake about 30 minutes, but I'm gonna set a timer so that you guys can know exactly how long it takes to bake them. I am gonna bake both trays up once. I actually have a convection setting on my oven. I have dual ovens. Like I've got the like tiny top one and then the like larger bottom one. So they're gonna go in the bottom on convection. So convection is 325. If you don't have convection, bake at 350. And like I said, guessing 30 minutes, but I will set a timer so we know exactly how long it takes to bake. And we'll have some fresh cinnamon rolls, caramel rolls, not cinnamon. You can make cinnamon. Don't put cream. Use the dough. All right, in the oven these go. I closed my dishwasher so you didn't have to look at my dirty dishes. It's been 30 minutes and now I just checked the rolls. They look like they're ready. I did rotate them like halfway through just because I don't know that there's an oven that like bakes evenly. And so the back, I haven't baked too much with this oven yet, but it definitely bakes a little bit warmer like in the back. It is a gas, it's a propane oven, so the back gets a little bit hotter than the front, so I did just like rotate them at like the 20-minute mark. So 30 minutes, I would say 25 to 35 minutes, just depending on your oven. So now we're gonna take them out and we're gonna flip them. It's just a solid thing of caramel rolls now, but it's kind of brown on the edges and it's bubbly. Okay, this is the scary part, but you can do it. So I just have a cookie sheet here. I'm gonna take this, flip away from yourself. Like don't, like I'm gonna go this way. Don't go this way. That makes me so nervous when people do that. Okay, like here's the, oh man, I just made a giant mess. Don't do that. Moment of truth. Let me grab a spatula. Well, that'll be fun for me to clean up. Oh, they look good. I always get nervous. No matter how many times I've made these. And then my towel's gonna get sticky. It's inevitable. Look at them. Of course, scrape out. There's not like much caramel in my pan still, but you don't want to leave that behind. Oh, they look perfect. So I do kind of, there is just like maybe a little bit extra cream like right in this one spot. So I do kind of just like spread it out, scoop this up. This is, you know, molten temperature. It's like the sun. So once this cools a little bit, you can always kind of spread your caramel back on top. But yeah, and then I'm just gonna leave it like in this brick to cool. So there's one pan. Let's get the other one out. Maybe I can not make a mess. It's all down the front of my oven. Again, like golden brown, firm on the peaks. This in the center is like just a little bit more, it's done. It's not like sticky, but it's a little bit more pale. Oh man, it is just, there's caramel everywhere. It's fine. Okay, we're gonna put the pan kind of in the middle. Ready, set. Okay, is this one gonna be as good? this one's gonna be as good. Oh, this one might even be better. These pans are great. Like, this is nice and clean. A little scrape. Don't leave the caramel behind. Oh, this one looks so pretty. Look at how good it looks. Just gonna stretch it. You can just kind of spread that. And that's what that pan looks like. Our caramel rolls are done. I'm just gonna let them sit here and cool, and then I will divide them up and I will freeze some of them because we're not gonna eat all these. And now I have caramel rolls for the kids through the holiday season, and for myself. I'm gonna eat some too. These are delicious. Haven't had them forever. Very glad to have them back. So I am working on getting like the farm store restocked on some of the products that I ran out of. I need to make salsa still. I need to get more baked goods done. But I've made things like hot sauce and tomato sauce, and I made soup. I made tomato soup. But just kind of slowly working through those things and getting caught up. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today in my kitchen. I hope that you make these. If you do make them, tell me about them. Let me know how they are. I also hope that you have a really great Thanksgiving. I will see you after Thanksgiving. I will have a video next Friday, and I will have a Black Friday sale and specials coming up for the website. So things like beef, pork, merchandise, jerky, it's all going to be on sale on the website. So there'll be more information about that like early next week as I work on that. And I am going to make some new apparel designs and stuff. So look forward to that. And if you've been wanting to try some of the beef and pork raised here on the ranch, Black Friday will be your chance to get it at a discount. So thank you so much. Have a happy Thanksgiving if you're celebrating, and I will see you next time.